Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where Thor Ragnarok is getting stranger and stranger. And one of the strangest things about it seems to be a cameo from Doctor Strange himself. The evidence? Well, a lot of people are taking photos of them filming on location, always a boon for hints at what will actually be in the film. And I guess they feel they're going to put some of this in the trailer, so snap away. But they have Thor holding like what seems like a Asgardian business card, and it has Doctor Strange's address on it. And he does appear to be in New York City, even though he's not actually shooting in New York City, but they've dressed it up like New York City, so that is also, of course, where Doctor Strange resides, at least at the end of the Doctor Strange movie, for those of you familiar with the character. I think that will be fantastic because not only is Chris Hemsworth a very skilled comedian, but so is Benedict Cumberbatch. So to see those two in a scene together is probably going to be amazing, especially if Taika Waititi is directing it. But Taika Waititi's influence is becoming very interesting indeed. There are a couple of other Easter eggs that people were able to glean from these photos. Some actually were, sent out over social media by the people involved with the film themselves. And one was Loki and Thor sitting in front of a newsstand with a couple of headlines. One, the biggest apparently, being some kind of Times Square murder. And then, of course, the fact that they were, both Loki and Thor were dressed as, Earthlings. And people have pointed out, and also we've seen a shot of Odin apparently as a homeless man. And a number of people have pointed out that in the Thor Ragnarok storyline in the comics, all of the Asgardians are, they're tied to Earthlings, identities of, people in Midgard, the realm of Midgard. That's how they would describe it in Asgard. And Thor has to go releasing each one to their former Asgardian glory. And I guess, as people are also pointing out, Doctor Strange could probably help with that, or at least put him on the right path. But what confuses me, besides how cheap Loki's suit looks, is how would that work with the intergalactic buddy road movie that Mark Ruffalo has described Thor Ragnarok as? And we saw the Planet Hulk armor at Comic-Con this year, so that's definitely happening. So, I don't know, Taika Waititi, I think, is quite talented, and I'm going to just have faith that this movie will be jam-packed with awesomeness instead of rushed. But we will see. I'm just so glad that Chris Hemsworth looks like he'll get to do some comedy, because I actually do believe that's his strongest point. But the other flourishing touch that was revealed is that Mark Mothersbaugh is going to score the film, which is hilarious. Mark Mothersbaugh is a very interesting composer. He comes from a rock background. But one of my favorite scores that he ever did was Wes Anderson's The Life Aquatic. And there's a fantastic action sequences using interns, which I thought was hilarious, that I really love from that film, and is one of the reasons The Life Aquatic might be my favorite Wes Anderson movie. So if they can put a musical score like that in the film, it's just going to get stranger and stranger, but also cooler and cooler. So Thor Ragnarok is very interesting indeed, but I think it needs this kind of outside of the box thinking to reinvent itself, because I think I liked Thor 1, really disliked Thor 2, and let's hope Thor 3 is the one, the third time is the charm, as they say. So that's the first story of the day. Now, the second story of the day is that a big headline on Sunday is that Tom Cruise is in a fight with Paramount right now over his salary for Mission Impossible 6, to such a degree that Paramount has actually told everybody working to get Mission Impossible 6 ready, including those working on the visual effects package, etc., to stop working, because they're not going to let Tom Cruise bully them into paying him more money. So what's the situation? Well, of course, everyone was very happy with Mission Impossible 5 Rogue Nation, from Tom Cruise to Paramount to the audience. It's a great movie. And so they, of course, greenlit Mission Impossible 6 with almost everyone returning in front of him behind the camera. And that includes Christopher McQuarrie to script and direct. And they're saying, don't worry about Mission Impossible 6. McQuarrie's still writing it, so we have some time to hash this out, right? So don't panic, everyone. Mission Impossible 6 is going to be okay. And I hope it is, because I really liked Mission Impossible 5. But anyway, Tom Cruise is like, they're like, we want to pay you what we paid you for Mission Impossible 5. And Tom Cruise is like, no way, man. Universal paid me a lot of money for The Mummy, so I want you to match that salary. That's my new asking price, right? And let's not forget that Tom Cruise's salary includes heavy participation in the box office, which he did get for Mission Impossible 5 and would for 6. But it's still not enough. he wants his mummy money. But what I think is interesting, and if I were Paramount, what I would say to him is I would say, Tom Cruise, do you not realize that Universal paid you an obscene amount of money to be in The Mummy so that you would be in The Mummy? Like, it's not the kind of movie that you think Tom Cruise would be in, or any huge star for that matter, right? Especially after Dracula Untold. However, Tom Cruise was the first domino and has allowed, I'm sure, them to talk so many other big-name actors into joining the monster cinematic universe that Universal is creating, from Johnny Depp to Javier Bardem to Russell Crowe. It's a very impressive cast that they're pulling together. And so Tom Cruise, actually, I think to some degree is the strongest name. Well, today, he's a long way from his couch jumping days. But anyway, he's still jumping up and down, but over how much he gets paid. But we'll see. If I were Paramount, there's no way I would pay him mummy money. I'd be like, let's see how the Mummy does. And if the Mummy does really well, maybe for Mission Impossible 7, I'll pay you mummy money. But for now, I see that as Universal sweetening the deal so that you would say yes. But of course you would make Mission Impossible 6. It's your franchise. It's the backbone of your career. It's your big franchise, Cruise, so don't forget that. And then also, I'd be like, or you could just keep making Jack Reacher movies and we'll go find someone else to be in the Mission Impossible franchise. It didn't work out so well for Universal with Bourne, but maybe Paramount can pull it off. All right, so speaking of paydays, it was announced today the highest paid actresses working in Hollywood. They separated them out from the overall list that came out earlier this year, and it's very interesting indeed. And kudos to Jennifer Lawrence for being the highest paid actress working in Hollywood this year with a $46 million payday. Now, that includes her back-end participation in the Hunger Games franchise, and she actually made a little bit more last year when that franchise was more lucrative. But still, she pulled in $46 million this year, but expected to, and also that includes her big Passengers payday. Remember, she really took Sony to the bank on that one because of the leaked emails, and also her, being shorted on her American Hustle pay. So, she really got them to have to do a mea culpa on that one. But expect her payday in 2017 to be a little bit lower. But still, it's a very impressive payday, and it's why Jennifer Lawrence continues to be the most sought-after actress in Hollywood. And right now, thanks to the Hunger Games franchise, she has the box office numbers to back it up. I think Passengers is going to be a really big test for her. I think that the initial photos that they've released of it look very good, and of course she's co-starring with Chris Pratt. And if they have great chemistry, and if that's a great movie, which it's looking like it is, that could really cement her stardom. Because right now she's got the Oscars, which of course are fantastic. She's got the Hunger Games, but she hasn't proven herself as a box office draw outside of the Hunger Games franchise. So that's what she really needs at this point, to prove that it's not the Hunger Games and Katniss Everdeen, but Jennifer Lawrence. I think she will do it if Passengers ever sees the light of day. Damn the U.S. judicial system. It's caught in legal limbo because of the software they used to motion capture her, and they haven't rendered it yet. And now it's stuck, the court has put it on hold. Oh, it's so bad. But anyway, if it does come out, I think it could really help her significantly. But anyway, women are still making significantly less than their male counterparts. But Jennifer Lawrence, to her credit, is number 6 on the overall list. Now, the number 1 paid actor of 2016 is Dwayne Johnson. Good for him. So that means that Dwayne Johnson and Jennifer Lawrence are the biggest stars working in Hollywood this year. Dwayne Johnson made almost $20 million more than her with $64.5 million. That's very, very impressive. Then after him, it goes Jackie Chan, Matt Damon, Tom Cruise, Johnny Depp. Amber Heard's like, I only got $7 million, but Johnny Depp, and then Jennifer Lawrence. So that's excellent. That's very good. As for the other women, though, the second highest paid woman in Hollywood is Melissa McCarthy with $33 million, followed by Scarlett Johansson with $25. She's still working her way up. You'd think the Black Widow would be paid a bit more, but then again, she doesn't star in any of those movies. We'll see if Ghost in the Shell is a game changer for her. Lucy opened the door for her to star in other movies outside of Marvel, and that's how she got Ghost in the Shell. And let's see if Ghost in the Shell can up that payday. Then, though, I thought it was also worth noting, Mila Kunis, by the way, was like number 9 on the list thanks to her Family Guy money, which I thought was interesting. But also there were some foreign actresses who made the top 10 list. You've got Jackie Chan there at number 2, but also China's Fan Bingbing was number 5 for women with $17 million. So I thought that was very interesting. And then just making it onto the list at number 10, pardon my pronunciation, is Bollywood's Deepika Padukone, who pulled in $10 million. It's kind of crazy she can get on the top 10 list with just a $10 million payday, but hey, women are working on it. But I think there's more women star in blockbusters, you know, like the upcoming Arrival with Amy Adams, you know, Captain Marvel, Wonder Woman with Gal Gadot. Perhaps women's paydays will continue to go up. But this is pretty good. Although Melissa McCarthy, let's see how much she makes next year after Ghostbusters. But anyway, let's go to the viewer question. Those are the 3 stories of the day. Now, the viewer question comes from X6X Batman. I love Batman. Okay, so X6X Batman says, "Hi, Grace. Liam from Ireland." Hi, Liam. Love your YouTube handle. "I love your content and watch it every day. You helped me become a bigger movie fan and would have helped me through tough times." I'm so honored and humbled to hear that, Liam. I hope you're doing better. So Liam says, "I have a question. Do you think that studios will become more afraid of doing reshoots because of the critical backlash to Suicide Squad and the problems that Rogue One is having? Or do you think they'll point to the box office success of World War Z and Suicide Squad and say reshoots are important? I would love to know what you think about this. And you did love World War Z, but disliked Suicide Squad. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. Lots of emojis, Liam." Oh, that's so nice, Liam. That's very sweet of you. Great question. Now, I think that reshoots, you know, you don't want your movie to suck, obviously. And I think, again, World War Z, as we discussed recently, is the best example of reshoots that there has been. It fixed the movie, and it did very well at the box office. And Suicide Squad was successful with those reshoots. And we'll have to see how Rogue One does. I think the publicity is not great for it. Everyone being aware of the reshoots and how Gareth Edwards has been taken off of his own film effectively. But hey, if the movie turns out, they fixed it. Good for them. I think the lesson from reshoots really needs to be that the studio suits should pay more attention to their projects before it gets to the point where they need to go into extensive reshoots. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if they are hiring executives that have no creative experience. For instance, Kevin Tsujihara comes from a business side of the company. He's not a creative. And maybe they have people in high positions in the suit side. You know, every major movie has a studio suit overseeing it. And perhaps those people are more numbers people than they are creatives. But you need to have a producer, as we've discussed before, who, even though their responsibility is the business angle of the film, they need to have an appreciation and an ability to gauge the creative aspects of the project that they're producing. And I think that goes for studio suits as well as the producers that the studio is hired to or who have come in. You know, there's different types of producers, you know, to oversee a film. You know, the way the hierarchy works is there's like the head of the whole studio. Then there's the head of the motion picture division. Then there's like the head of the division that you're working in, right? Like, for instance, at Warner Brothers, someone heads up the Harry Potter, someone heads up the DC movies, et cetera, et cetera. Over at Disney, you have Kevin Feige heading up Marvel, Kathleen Kennedy heading up Lucasfilm, John Lasseter heading up animation, et cetera, et cetera. So, although John Lasseter is a special situation because he doesn't report to the head of Disney Film, which is Alan Horn, he reports directly to Bob Iger. But there's this hierarchy. And then on each individual picture, you have a studio suit who oversees it for the studio's interests to make sure that it's okay. And then you have a producer who's specifically working on that film. You're supposed to have usually like one main producer who's overlooking the movies, or if it's a franchise, or the movie, like David Heyman for the Harry Potter movies, for example, right? And then there are also executive producers, associate producers, but there's that one dude who's like the main producer. And that's the way the hierarchy on a film works. And for instance, if you take like Christopher Nolan's films or Zack Snyder's films, their wives are the main producers on that film, which effectively is Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder are in charge of their own movies, because as we've discussed, their wives don't really seem to have very strong creative voices or business voices. They seem to really be able to, they seem to be there to facilitate their husband's abilities to get their creative vision across, right? Not to be hindered by any business demands. And I actually have a major problem with that. But anyway, I think that somebody who needs to be more responsible at the studio and looking at the, maybe that'll be Jeff Johns for DC going forward, looking at the outlines. You should be looking at these things from the very beginning, from the initial pitch meetings. You should be paying attention to this. You should be seeing how the outline comes together, how the script comes together, how the storyboards have come together, how, you're supposed to look at dailies and see how they're looking, a producer gets the dailies and they're supposed to, at the end of the day or sometime during their day, sit down and watch parts of them to see how the movie is coming if they're not on set. So you wanted to do that. Some producers like Jerry Bruckheimer, Scott Rudin, Harvey Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein works very strong in the acquisitions business, but if you're a producer Joel Silver, if you produce multiple movies, you can't be on every set, so you have the daily sent to you for that purpose to keep an eye on how the film is developing. Then you need to be in the editing room, then you need to see and then at that point, once you get out of production, then that's when you'd have to enter a reshoot phase if things aren't gelling in the editing room or with test audiences. But, why when you get to that point are things not locked down better? And so I think that's the big lesson here. And also, again, who are you hiring? Because every time we have reshoots, it's because the director, I think anyone could have predicted that director wouldn't do a good job. Mark Forster on World War Z, have you seen The Quantum of Solace, Brad Pitt? David Ayer on Suicide Squad, has anyone seen Sabotage, right? I was just coming off of End of Watch, I'd be like, I trust him, but I saw Sabotage. Then also with Rogue One and Gareth Edwards, what about Godzilla? I mean, it just seems to me obvious that these directors would have problems. Like, I have tremendous faith in James Wan and his Aquaman, but I would be a little bit nervous about Patty Jenkins and Rick Famuyiwa's Wonder Woman and The Flash, just because they have so little experience making a blockbuster, right? But if you really pay attention and you watch them closely and you have really good second unit directors to work underneath them to help them and to make sure that and a good cinematographer to both of them to kind of be like a safety net, then maybe they wouldn't need reshoots, right? Because both those directors are supposed to be very strong narratively. So, and the second unit director and the cinematographer should be able to make sure those action sequences turn out, which would probably be their weak points. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm also starting to believe that a big problem is that you have directors here who aren't familiar with comic book mentality and fandom, and that's why Chris Terrio didn't work. So I think one of the things they might have to be careful about is who they hire. It's like hiring Julie Taymor to do Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, right? I mean, she just doesn't have an affinity for that material that it matches the audience. They're not on the same wavelength. And so it might be something that going forward, they have to not only find a talented director, but someone whose vision for the character lines up with what the audience wants to see from that character. So it's very complicated. But anyway, I hope that sheds a little bit of light on not only the reshoot situation, but the hierarchy for a motion picture. All right, thank you so much for tuning in today. Please write down below today's top 3 stories, Liam's viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.